Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third session of our esteemed leadership lecture series. It is a distinct privilege to introduce our distinguished guest for today, Mr. Sharan Apparao. As one of India's foremost curator and promoters of the arts, she has earned a renewed reputation in her field. Her introduction into the world of arts began in 1983 with a captivating debut at an art exhibition in Chennai. Since then, she has ascended to the pinnacle of the art world, adorned with numerous prestigious accolades. In 2007, she received the honor from FICCI, being recognized as one of the foremost women achievers in our nation, celebrated for her unparalleled dedication to the promotion of contemporary arts in India. In 2012, her brilliance was further acknowledged when she was bestowed with the Ritz Audi Award, a testament to her outstanding contribution. But her journey didn't stop there. Miss Apparao is the visionary founder and the driving force behind the Apparao Galleries, a name synonymous with artistic excellence spanning across Chennai and New Delhi. She has also pioneered the groundbreaking Apparao Art Ocean, a dynamic platform that facilitates the exchange of priceless artworks. Yet she is not content with the confines of the conventional art world. Miss Apparao's boundless creativity and entrepreneurship spirit have led to the establishment that internationally acclaimed e-commerce platform Artroot. Through this groundbreaking venture, she has opened unprecedented avenue for artistic enabling them to connect with global audience like never before.
It's an honor to be at this institution. You know, you're rated as one of the most prestigious institutions in India. So for me, it's a great honor. I came from a art background. So let me give you a little bit of a background of my life and what I did. I studied art, fine art in Stella Maris. I graduated in 1982. And that was a time when times were completely different from this. People were, as a young person, you were cruising around without actually a focus. And I know that's very unusual for people in an audience like IIT Madras, where everybody is so focused from when they are 12 years old and they're all gearing to get into this very fantastic institution. But our lives were very different. We were studying art. And when you studied art, I think there was the platform was wide. You could do anything. You could work with geography, you could work with history, you could work with literature, you could work with anything. And the fine art platform connected with everything. So when I was in Stella Maris, it was just another college, with lots of fun, with lots of things happening, and the entire course piqued my mind, my attention, and I began to enjoy it. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't think I was going to be involved in the arts on a long-term basis. I was doing it for the fun of it. I enjoyed it, and at the end of it, I thought I have to really think about what to do. And after many years in a convent school and a convent college, I wanted to take a break to think about what I wanted to do. And I just trekked in the mountains. I did a sculpture course. I did things like this. And I thought, I want to go back to the arts. At that time, people were working in travel agencies. People were getting married. People were doing different kinds of things. But nobody was working in the arts. And when I decided to work in the arts, also, my scope and my options were either to do pottery, to do sculpture, or to do something like a business in the arts. And I met a very old friend of mine who was much, much older than me, and she encouraged me, said, why don't you do something that is more in the fine arts? So I began to think, but I really didn't have anybody to, there was no platform, there was no example for me to look up to. And I came across this book, and I have to tell you that when I was asked to do this lecture, I was thinking I have to talk about this book, and I couldn't remember the name and I couldn't remember the writer. And as luck would have it, about 4 or 5 days ago, I suddenly chanced upon a set of books on artists' lives, and there was the name. And I was like, oh my God, now this is this is definitely a good starting point. The author was Calvin Tompkins, and the book was called Merchants and Masterpieces. It was a book on how the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is in New York, which is a very prestigious museum, one of the most visited, largest museums which has antiquities, was started with just a dream. He talks about how this philanthropist had this vision, and then they raised money, and then they got this fantastic museum together. And I read it and I thought to myself, that entitles me to have a vision too. So my vision was not that of a museum, but my vision was that I could actually work in the arts in a very serious way. So, of course, I had no money. I had no background. I came from a family which was landed gentry, so I didn't even come from a business family. So I had no idea about accounting. I had no idea about, I mean, I knew about art because I had studied fine art, but I had no idea about the business side of art. So, of course, I was very naive. And I said, I was talking to this friend, and she said, "Why don't you open a gallery?" And at this stage, let me tell you, nothing in my life ever went right in the beginning. I always had an idea, and I had many, many hurdles before that idea got crystallized. So I was so naive. I found this very cute house, and I went to this lady and I said, I want to rent your house because I want this art gallery. So I was all of 21. And of course, I don't know how she got taken up by me. She gave me the house, I paid the advance and blah, blah, borrowed the money from my mother and paid the advance. And then I was very good friends with the people at Crafts Council. I said, you take the garage as your office, I'll open a bookshop, and then the rest will be the gallery. And it sounded very nice. It sounds nice even today. But in those days, there was no way that I could have made even 3 rupees from the art world. So after 4 days of sleepless nights, I realized that I couldn't do it. So I went back to that lady and I said, I'm really very sorry. I cannot do this because I will not be able to pay your rent. So I gave it up. And at that stage, I went to Cholamandal and I asked all these artists, so will you give me artworks and will you do exhibitions? And you know how artists are. I mean, they were like, yeah, yes, no, they were just lackadaisical. They were just all vague. So I was like, okay, with this kind of thing, I don't know how I'm going to start this whole thing. So let me see how it goes. Then I came across this lady who was doing Chinese paintings, living in Singapore, but she was Indian. And so she was connected to this friend of mine who was almost like a mentor to me. And I said, okay, let's do this exhibition. So I talked to her. She said, yeah, sure, I'll give you the exhibition. And I then decided I'll go to Chola Hotel, ask them. I knew a person who was connected with ITC. I went to them. I asked them, will you give me the hotel? They were like, yeah, sure, we'll give you the hotel. They gave me this skating ring. There used to be this ice skating ring. It was like a dungeon. Okay. And I was like, beggars can't be choosers. I took it. And of course, another few sleepless nights because I was like, how am I going to hang the art in this place? And then I was like, okay, I need a catalog. And I had no idea. We had one paper called Applied Arts in Stella Maris, which taught us how to design catalogs and how to do this thing. Those were the days of the letterpress. There was no digital art, remember. There was no way of correcting. You had to do the stick and paste kind of catalog, and then you had to make these pages, and then if the pages didn't look good, you had to redo it. So this whole process took a long time. Anyway, long story short, it took me a long time. I thought about this exhibition. Then I came up with this idea that, okay, I'd suspend all these paintings. I'd get plants from all my friends. All my friends till today tell me you owe us one because we carried your pots when you were doing nothing. And this exhibition was a success. Everything sold out because I think my family was very kind and they wanted to support me. And so it went from that to the next exhibition, which was I used to paint a little bit. I don't call myself an artist, but when you are studying art, you do learn the little basics of art. So I used to go to the race club with my cousin, And he used to be a polo player, and I used to go there to sketch the horses. So I was interested in horses, but I really didn't have a curatorial background. And I have to tell you what I am today. And when I look back at my life, I think, oh my God, how did I even have the courage to do this? And then I went and I looked at these horses and I thought, oh yeah, maybe horses is the next subject. And so I knew Hussein did horses. I knew Sunil Das did horses. And I knew there were a bunch of artists who did horses. And those were the days of telephone directories. I got the telephone directories, found their phone numbers, phoned them. And my mother was listening to me and she said, how on earth are these people agreeing to you? Why are they telling you that they're giving you these paintings? Are they going to give you these paintings? So I said, anyway, yeah, they're believing me and they're going to give me the paintings. And I think I was so enthusiastic. I was young and my enthusiasm was infectious, which I think is another character that has taken me forward, because when I have ideas, I talk about them. And I think I'm always excited about what I'm doing. So I share that with people. And that is another point that allows people to actually come back and work. And you can enthuse people, because if you believe in something, other people believe it. And it's easy to convince people. So I had this big exhibition with Hussein and blah and all these artists. And again, I took the same same place, which was the skating rink they gave me. And I did this fabulous exhibition. Yes, we sold some works. And then I thought, oh my God, what should be my next exhibition? And I have to tell you, I was really naive. I only learned things the hard way. Okay, and I decided the next exhibition would be one of women artists of India. Okay, so everybody knows Amrita Shergill. So I had this list, out of which Amrita Shergill was one. But I was so naive that I didn't even realize that they're so rare and so difficult and impossible to get. So I said, I will go to her hometown, though she's not alive. There must be her. Then I realized there was a husband. Let me go and talk to him. And let me ask him if I can borrow his paintings. So I went to Bareilly, which is at the other end of the world. And my cousin used to live there. So they sent me on the scooter with their orderly. He used to work in the Air Force. They sent me to Sardar Nagar, which is the sugar mill where her family comes from. And I went and met this husband who was such a charming man. And he made me, I wanted to cry when he told me the stories, because he told me how he was treated by her family, how he had nothing. And he said, you go and meet people in the family and maybe they'll lend you works and etc., etc. But all the stories he gave me, I knew that this was not going to happen. At least I was a bit realistic. And anyway, I went back, I did this exhibition. It was a lovely exhibition, nothing sold. So then at this stage, I met a lawyer who was a friend of my father's, who told me that, Grindlay's Bank has this gallery and they want somebody to run it for them. So why don't you go and work for them? So I said, but uncle, I do not want to work in a bank. So he said, no, why don't you go and meet them? I said, no, I don't want to work for other people. So I really want to do this art thing and I really can't work for them. He said, no, why don't you go? You're so young. You must at least go and get some experience. So anyway, I went to meet this gentleman and he was utterly charming. He was a Bengali gentleman, Mr. Mukherjee, who, how the Bengalis, they're very erudite and they're very articulate and they're very interested in the arts. And this gentleman was so charming. And he said, yes, we have this gallery. We have nobody to run it. You do what you want with it. So I said, oh, how are we going to do this? So he said, you tell me. So then we worked out a model. So for 2.5 years, Grindlay's Bank was my platform to learn how to run the art business. Because they paid for the cards, they paid for the tea, coffee, they had the space, and I curated the exhibitions. I went here, there, called Souza, called Lakshma Gaud, called all kinds of artists, went and made friends with everybody, traveled across the country, one day in Bombay, one day here, and met lots and lots of artists and did lots of shows. But, I was not it was not just shows. For me, I felt that I have to give some life to this show. So when we did the Sousa exhibition, Sousa lived in Paris. And I thought, I have to give that flavor of Paris. So I told everybody, please come dressed in black and white. I had black and white tables, and I had like a little cafe scene type, like this Parisian scene. I mean, it was just an installation. So everything that I did, I gave it a little bit of a flavor. I think it was important to bring that joy of the work, the joy of putting together the exhibition, plus making that narrative a bit more palatable. And we did lots of exhibitions, and they were very successful. But this bank was only open from 9 to 12, and all normal people couldn't come. But people who could come made it, and it was not open on Saturdays, and you know how the banks were in the 1980s. Okay, so this was a time, and of course, my friends thought I was crazy. Lots of people thought I was crazy because they feel like, what are you doing an art gallery? Because you're not going to make any money. I was like, okay, it doesn't matter, as long as I enjoy it, why not? So I think what I want to say is it was passion driven. I did a lot, but it was definitely passion driven. And at the end of 2 years, I told Mr. Mukherjee, I said, Mr. Mukherjee, this is not working perfectly because this 9 to 12 business does not work. You need a gallery. You want to be serious about promoting art. I mean, yes, you're doing it for your branding of your bank, but you really need to be serious. How can people come from between 9 to 10, 9 to 12? Where will they all find the time? Businessmen can't come, etc., etc. So he said, what do you suggest? I said, you're opening a new branch in El Dorado building. You please make half of it the gallery. You separate it so that the entrance is separate. You keep the bank shut after 12 o'clock. There's no problem, but keep the gallery open. He said, yeah, that's a very good idea. So then we did that. Okay. So I learned so much in those 3 years. That was my classroom. What I learned in Stella Maris was not my classroom. Okay. At Stella, I learned how to appreciate art. I learned how to read art. I learned how to understand art. But the actual business of running the gallery was my school was that Grinley's Art Gallery. And then after a couple of years, we ran all these things together over maybe 3 years. And Mr. Mukherjee, of course, got transferred. And the next gentleman who came was very sweet, wanted to continue it, but didn't have the enthusiasm of Mr. Mukherjee. I mean, Mr. Mukherjee was like really interested. Like he would say, what is the next exhibition? And, oh my God, this and, whatever. He was very interested in the arts. So I got bored. And I said, this Grinley's Bank is not happening. But I want to continue in the arts. So I didn't have money because as those days there was no money in the arts. But I needed to have my own space because I said, let me have my own gallery. And my mother had a building and the staircase was different, separate to the terrace. And when we were young, we used to have parties on that terrace. So I asked her, I said, can I please use the terrace? She said, yeah. I said, I'll build this gallery. She said, go ahead. But of course, I had no money. So I spoke to, those days you had brochures where you had advertising. So I brought out a brochure and took ads from all the people I knew and collected the money, built this gallery. Then I wanted to use a young architect. The architect was experimenting. The gallery roof collapsed. Then the next person who came around built me a roof that had a crack in it. So, everything went wrong. But I didn't give up because I realized that these were all the stumbling blocks. This is part of the adventure. And of course, I was so... when you're young, you have lots of ideas. And as you go along, you realize that you have to be practical too. So anyway, then we built the gallery and we were ready to open. And then MGR died the day we were opening it, 24th of December. And so like I said, everything always went wrong and then went right. And... then anyway, we opened, I think maybe in January or something like that. After this, everything quietened down. And the first exhibition I did was Jahangir Sabawala. And he was a big star. But at that time, there was the Illustrated Weekly of India, which I don't know if you all remember. I mean, definitely many of you are too young to remember that magazine, but it was brought out by the Times of India. And the editor was a gentleman called Mr. Pritish Nandi, who was very interested in the arts. And he had these very volatile pages where Hussain said, Sabawala is the worst artist in the world, Ganesh Pine is the best artist in the world, all these type of things. So all this created a lot of sensation. And I did this Sabawala exhibition, he was such a gentleman and such a wonderful man. And did this exhibition, and of course, it was successful. He had done 3 shows, and we were at the end, and we had only 4 paintings to sell. But anyway, we sold the paintings and blah, blah, and made at least ends meet. That was the beginning of the successful phase when things began to happen. Okay? And, I met many artists. They were all people I would dine with. I would meet them. I would talk to them for hours. They all became friends. And when Jahangir Sabawala wanted to do the next exhibition, he asked me, he said, will you make a film? I said, yeah, I can make the film. How much will it cost? It was 15 lakhs. So he said, why don't you ask your South Indian industrialist to sponsor it? So I said, okay, not a bad idea. I came back and I didn't have the courage to ask anybody for this money. I was like, what am I going to tell them? Because I don't see anybody spending 15 lakhs on making a documentary film. I mean, just remember, this was 1987 or 89 or something like that. Nobody wanted to spend money on these kind of things. And so I came back and I thought about it. And after about a month, he called me and he asked me, so have you got a sponsor? So I said, no, I haven't got a sponsor. But what are the prices of your paintings going to be? He said 45,000 rupees. So I said, okay, I'll sponsor it. He said, how will you do it? I said, you're giving me 15 paintings. I'll add 1 lakh to each painting. He was horrified. He was completely horrified. He was like, how can you do that? I said, you want the money and I'll sell the paintings. Don't worry about that. So he didn't believe me. He was not at all convinced. But I think I had my pulse on the market. I knew that I could sell the paintings for that price. And it was not as if I was taking the money and going on a holiday. I was putting the money back into his film. So we made the film. Okay. I sold all the paintings. I gave him the money. We paid everybody. The film won 2 national awards. And I had nobody, not a single friend when we released the film. We released it in Bombay. I didn't have a single friend from Madras who I could say, hey, look what I did. So it just went as, okay, another thing that we learned the hard way. And so by this time, the market had picked up, and by this time, things were happening, and by this time, the auctions were starting, and by this time, the prices were going up. So then came the next phase where many people got into the art business, so there was competition. But I think what was important is to continue. And I did choose to continue because today we're just going into our 40th year. And I only think I was able to sustain it, not because of the success in business, but because I actually enjoyed the work. So whether it's getting up at 6 o'clock and sending messages, or whether it's midnight and I'm trying to finish some PDF, I mean, I'm not a tech person. So for me to learn how to do a PDF itself took me many lessons of many people who took me for a ride. And one of my interns actually told me, why, I can teach you how to do this. So, I learned a lot, as I went along, and just stayed in the business. And a lot of my bread and butter comes from selling blue chip art. I curate exhibitions, I sell the blue chip art, I take the money and I spend it back into the art business. So I put it back into younger artists. So over the years, we built a collection. Some artists helped because they needed the money. Some artists didn't want to take their paintings back, so we had to pay them. Some artists, we bought the works because we liked the work. Some artists, some artworks were left with us because some client wanted us to keep it, saying, yes, yes, I'll pay you, didn't pay us finally. So, all these things over the years, we built this collection. We promoted young artists, and we continue to do that. And my joy, my bread and butter comes from selling the blue chip, but my joy and my soul is really in the young artists, because every time I see somebody new that makes my heart sing, I know that this is the artist that I really need to work with. And I meet many, many like that. And what is heartbreaking is there are many, 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 many good artists who are so good, but I can't give them a break. Not everybody is successful, and not everybody is somebody we can work with. So, really, my journey was about passion. It was about making the hardship into an adventure, and it was about consistency. I really think these were the 3 points that brought me to this stage and brought my gallery to age 40. So when I tell people that my gallery is 40 years old, they first look at me and I'm like, okay, I take it as a compliment that you're shocked that I am some 60 something. But I think most art businesses which are self-run are not actually so long, and we've been able to stay in business. We've been able to work across the country because we've been doing shows across the country, and there are things that don't work, and I'm very quick to say take stock and say, okay, this is not working, let's leave it and move on. Like during the pandemic, we started a platform for the arts, and I knew that it was worthwhile during the pandemic, but it was not going to be sustained later. So we've got it, and we're going to turn it into something else. But we'll give it another shot to see whether it works. So like this, there are many little things that we start, and then in our business, we think, can we do this? And we experiment, and if it works, we continue it. Otherwise, we don't. So I'm also very open-minded, and I don't take failure in a hard way. I've learned a lot from my failures. I've learned a lot from the hard lessons that I've learned. And here I am. So I don't know what else you all want to hear, but I'm open to questions. I don't know, do we have any time? So, please.
Actually, I have 3 questions, but I think maybe I'll start with the first one. You mentioned that
You
not
need the
every
mic?
artist you are able to give a break. It's
Yeah.
not just about the creativity of the artist, perhaps, right? Like, so, what are the other ingredients required for a budding artist?
I think that's a great question. When artists are successful, they become successful because they're relevant. Okay? I think when artists are irrelevant, they fail. Okay, so when I say that they're relevant, either their narrative is strong, or their time in and place is right, or their time in history. So the subjects they take up, the stories that they have to tell are really the most important things. And you can be technically skilled, but that is what is the difference between an artist and a craftsperson. So your craft of painting or your craft of sculpture can be very good, but if you don't have a great story, you're not going to make a good artist. So that selection is based on those ingredients. And I have to tell you that I listened to a lecture long ago, and it was, I think, Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, who talked about instinct. And the fact that instinct is actually layers of understanding and learning that you have internalized. And that is what it is. When I look at an artist, it's also many years of traveling, seeing artists all over the world, seeing different things, craft, uh, luxury, fashion, everything. Everything goes to make my makeup. And at the end, the artists I choose are those that I relate to. And many have been successful. I've picked many artists who've gone on to be successful elsewhere, and I've picked many artists who I've worked with for 5 or 10 years and then let them go, and they've become successes. So the excitement in the art is discovering an artist and working with them in their formative years. Because I think the infancy of their artworks is very exciting because you actually see their minds work and you see them evolving into real artists.
So I have just one more thing on one is a trivial question, but say for example, basically how do you recognize between the original and the
Fake.
fake, right?
Oh no,
And
that's
to that, I
yeah.
just have one more thing. Not in the age of AI, right? How do you, what is the relevance of original artists actually fading?
I think that's a great question because we've just done okay. The first part, fake and thing, is only knowledge because like I'm knowledgeable about certain artists. Like I can look at a Ravi Verma and tell you, okay, this is fake. I can look at a Raza and tell you this is fake. But because we've seen so much, no, you know the artist, you know the mind, you've read so much, you've studied so much, so you know a lot of the characteristics. And when you know, I've seen some once or twice people have brought me these Ravi Varmas that are fantastic.
When you
Okay,
say the land, for example, if this would be like
so I'll tell you, there was one lady with a lamp type of painting that came to me, but something bothered me. You know, the hands were too big. And Ravi Verma was a fantastic artist. His hands, his proportions, they were all fantastic. And I looked at it and I said, oh my God, there's something bothering me about this painting. And it was the hands, and that was a fake painting. You know, so you can tell, but I can't tell for all artists. So you have to rely on other scholars and other people who are knowledgeable for that. But that's like a big whole discussion, and that's a whole different ball game now because there's so much money in the business that the market is flooded with fakes. Every artist that is selling over 25 lakhs is being faked. It's terrible. I mean, the art world today is a scary place to be in. So now let me tell you about AI. Okay, I think it's great because AI is another tool. If you're a great craftsman, all of you are technology students. So you know what AI is and you know how you can turn it out. So that is a tool. It's like a pencil. It's like a chisel for a sculptor, or it's like a yarn for a textile weaver. So AI is a tool, and if somebody turns out work that is relevant, then they're successful because then whatever they produce and however it looks will look fabulous. Because today, with I've talked to all of you about art and technology, and if we produce works that are technology based and they say something, okay, you're not going to be talking about the craft of technology all the time. You're at the end of the day, what is going to speak? It's going to be that work of art. So we just did this exhibition of this artist called Jayesh Sachdev, who was into fashion photography and many other things, and he was also an artist. But he discovered AI and he played with the whole idea. He taught himself, learned whatever, did courses and all this, and produced this range of fabulously fantastic works. These were, uh, he did this whole series on animals, which were humanized. Okay, so for him, he was talking about the human element of animals, and these animals were all dressed like royals, in regalia. And it was arresting visually. The idea was arresting because today you have so many different aspects of this whole subject. And the works were large and dramatic, and we did well with the show. In fact, this small new gallery that we opened in Delhi, we opened with his show. So yes, I think it has a future. People are concerned that, oh, it'll be faked, oh, it'll be this, it'll be that. No, it's like any other work. Because AI is the tool. AI is like a pencil to, it's like a pen to a writer or like a pencil to a sketcher. So it's a great tool. I don't know about this NFT business, but this is a great tool.
yeah, but then it moves more to your mind than to your to do with
No, and art is not about the hands anymore. It's about the mind. It's not at all about the skill level. That's why I said it's more about the narrative and more about the concept. Because it's a story you tell. Can I take one more question before we wind up? Yes.
Apart from work and like the family and your life at home, all that. How did you manage both of it?
Oh, I'm asked this question very often. I think I'm a little bit crazy. I work at all odd hours. And luckily for me, at home, I've had a fantastic support system. My mother was a rock. Okay, she stood by me. My family has been fantastic. My partner today supports me. I made him an artist. He was a businessman. So I think, like I said, it's infectious. I convert everybody. My mother had no clue about art. When I took the first painting home, she was like, "What are these black faces? I don't want this ugly stuff." And then when I was moving out of our house to my own flat, she was like, "No, you can't take this painting." I said, "But you didn't like it." She said, "No, no, no, I like it now." So, I had a very good support system. So I think it was easy. I travel a lot. So my influences are very varied. And I'm a risk taker. I'm also a little bit, maybe because I studied art, I'm a little bit of an artist who's not an artist. So I'm a very good put togetherer because I'll mix up things and I enjoy it. So I think that makes it very easy to work. So anything else, or can we wind up? Because as usual, I'm running from one thing to another. But thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And it's always a joy to talk to students. Thank you, thanks a lot.
I request Mr. Kaviraj Nair, CEO of Office of Institutional Advancement, to felicitate Ms. Sharan Apparao with a memento.
Enjoyed it, and I hope you all enjoyed it because it's very far away from technology.
That's exactly why it really appeals to a lot of us because we are always curious to learn new things. It made it a point. Actually, had it been a talk on AI, I wouldn't have come here. It certainly makes a lot more sense to us. So,
Thank you. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do some things together.
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you also.
Uh, So, ladies and gentlemen, as we have approached the end of this event, on behalf of the ACR office and the Alumni Relations Cell, I wish to express our heartfelt appreciation to Mr. Sharan Apparao for generously dedicating her time and sharing her invaluable insight with us today. Your presence and words have undoubtedly left a lasting impression and inspiration in our hearts. And I also would like to express my gratitude to the wonderful audience for their participation and interaction. Thank you for coming.